Is heaven real? Because I would really like to know. Hey, what's up guys? It's X Morgan with My Spiritual Life. Today we're going to be talking about heaven. Because I would really like for that to be a real thing. And I'm going to tell you why I have concerns about it. Before we get into it, I want you guys all to click the link to join my newsletter below, because I'm going to be posting extra content just for exclusively the newsletter people. So if you want to be a newsletter people and also get updates about free classes and upcoming events and videos and all that stuff, then click the link below to be on my newsletter. Boom. Okay, so I want to talk about the concept of heaven because it's something that I've struggled with ever since leaving Mormonism, and I feel like I'm probably not the only one who's frustrated with this. So as a little bit of background, I grew up Mormon, I left the church, and now I consider myself to be agnostic, but I'm hopeful that there's a God. I really want there to be a God, and I'm going to get into that a little bit why. Recently, I just finished watching the entire series called The Good Place, which if you haven't seen it, it's an awesome, awesome show. It's the sitcom basically about heaven. And I'm just warning you guys right now that I'm going to have a lot of spoilers. I'm not going to do any spoilers that like super ruin the show, but there are going to be spoilers about the concepts of heaven that are portrayed in the show. So, if you haven't seen the show, definitely check it out, and just heads up, a little bit of spoilers. Okay, so in this show, it's called The Good Place, and basically it does this amazing job of taking all of our concepts of heaven and portraying them on the screen and making us realize how ridiculous they seem, okay? So in this show, The Good Place, basically someone dies, and what happens is they either go to the good place or they go to the bad place, heaven or hell. And that it's based off a point system, because doing something in life gets you a point, either a positive point or a negative point. So then you have to have a good score to go to the good place, or if you have a bad score, you're going to go to the bad place. And the interesting thing about these concepts is that just seeing it played out on the screen makes you realize how ridiculous it sounds. And I'm not saying that's not possible that heaven and hell exist, but just watching it makes you really wonder, okay? And especially most Christian theologies with heaven and hell is that it's not like a oops and you go to hell and you're tortured for a while and then you go to heaven. It's like you're tortured in hell forever. And there's actually all these jokes about how the people in hell, in the bad place that are being tortured, are like bored of the torture. Because like you can only have spiders crawl out of your eyeballs so many times before it's just old. And anyway, this show does an amazing job of just pointing out how many of these concepts with regards to heaven and hell and the afterlife just don't make any sense. And it doesn't have to make sense for it to be true, right? Things that don't make sense sometimes are true. You know, making sense doesn't necessarily dictate truth, but it still is concerning, right? A large part of the plot is driven by the main characters, several of them being sent to the bad place and trying to find out a way to get into the good place instead, right? And eventually, obviously it kind of makes sense, the characters end up in the last season finally making it to the good place. And when they get there, they realize that there's a huge problem with the good place, heaven. And what it is that everyone there is like happy zombies, is what they call them. It's these people that are devoid of purpose or meaning, and they are just like, they can have anything they want. They can do anything they want. Like they can fly. They can go visit, you know, the Alps. They can, you know, do all these things. And they're just so utterly jaded by this state of perpetual bliss. And so they try to come up with essentially a solution to help these people find meaning and purpose again. And one of the main characters says something to the effect of, you know what makes humans so happy? It's that they're always a little bit sad all the time because they know one day they're going to die. And that actually makes them happy because it makes them appreciate and love what they have right now. And so they take that concept and they introduce into this fictional heaven a door. And this door just leads to, I guess, non-existence or being recycled into the universe. They are very vague about it. But the whole idea is that now introducing like the ability to leave this heaven or this good place made the people there feel like they had purpose again. Because all of a sudden there was a finite amount of time to be at this place. And once you were done, you could kind of move on to your next step in the journey. And when the people asked, like, well, where do you go when you go through the door? They basically said, well, we don't exactly know. We just know that your time is done here. Anyway, so they introduce that concept and they pretty much end the show that way with like, oh, you know, people, they get to heaven and they get to accomplish whatever it is they didn't get to accomplish. And then they just move on and disintegrate or whatever, or get recycled in the universe. I'm not sure. Anyway, watching that show was incredible and also very, very triggering for me. And the reason why that was so triggering is because I was taught growing up that I would be with my family forever, that I would get to be with my siblings and my spouse and my kids, and we would all live in this big, happy heaven world together. And that brought me a lot of comfort. It brought me a lot of peace, and especially where death was involved. Like, I remember when my grandpa died, it being very comforting to think, oh, well, I'm going to see him again. It's not like this is an ending. It's just we're going to be separate for a while. And it was comforting. And now my perspective is different because just because something is comforting doesn't mean it's true. And that's why I get frustrated because I'm like, I would love to believe in the idea of heaven, but just because I want it to be true doesn't make me convinced that it is true. And this is no disrespect if you believe heaven's true. That's awesome. I'm just talking about my kind of emotional journey with it because it's hard. It's frustrating. I want to know what the answers are. And I think that's the Mormon in me that was grown up believing that I had all the answers. It's that part of me that's like, I just want to know. Anyway, one reason why watching this was so particularly triggering for me was because I realized the concept of heaven just didn't make sense. Like, what do you do in heaven forever? There's like this joke they make. There's this like really goofy character on the show, and he like, the first thing he does when they get to the good place, the heaven, he like rides dirt bikes with monkeys in the mountains or something just like ridiculous. And then he comes back and he's like, you'd be surprised how quickly dirt biking with monkeys gets boring. And I was just like, if you expand any activity into eternity, into forever, it would eventually have to get boring, right? Like, I mean, I don't know that for sure because I've lived a long time and I've never felt like ice cream got boring. But I don't know. Is ice cream good because I don't know how to wrap my mind around this because I've lived a long time and ice cream has never gotten boring. But also, like, expanding anything into this concept of perpetual forever is just so hard to grasp. It's so hard to imagine. And so I think a lot of people would probably argue that we can't really fathom it as humans. But I feel depressed. I felt depressed in watching this show because it put heaven in front of my eyes and made me realize just how it didn't make any sense. Because like, okay, so let's say that I do die and I'm in heaven with Jared and my kids and stuff. And we just, what do? We just sit there? We just hang out? We just ride dirt bikes with monkeys? Like, so much of what gives us happiness is purpose. And if we don't have purpose in heaven, I don't know what that would look like. And especially expanded into forever. Now, Mormons used to believe that in the next life we would progress into godhood, and then we'd become our own gods, and then have our own planets, and like have our spiritual children, you know, inhabiting the planet. But Mormonism is pulling away from that teaching, so that isn't even a thing. Even though I used to think that was actually pretty cool, because heaven sounds kind of boring in most religions. It's like you just sing to Jesus forever. I feel like I could sing to him for, you know, a good 50 or 60 years maybe, and then I feel like I would be really, really bored. Anyway, I don't know how to deal with this, and I just felt like it'd be worth talking about in a video because I'm sure other people feel similarly. I miss being Christian. I miss having that faith that like God has my back, like if things are going bad. I miss feeling like if someone dies, I know that I'll see them again. And right now I'm very afraid that that might not be true. And I mean, the pro of that, I guess, is enjoy life right now, right? But I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to enjoy life right now, whether there's an afterlife or not. I want to strive to enjoy the now. But I still find myself frustrated and afraid because I don't know what's going to happen next. And I think I especially feel afraid because if something were to happen to one of my kids or to Jared, I don't know how I could cope with it. Because I'm so used to that Mormon foundation giving me that peace to cope with, like, oh yeah, I'm going to see this person again, and that, you know, their soul is going to be with you and guiding you and stuff. And I'm not saying those things aren't true, but it's much harder for me to convince myself to believe those things than it used to be. So is heaven real? I don't know. If it is real, what's the purpose of it? What are we doing while we're there? And is there something that happens after that? And if heaven's real, what's up with hell, right? Straight up just torture forever? I don't know. Comment down below your thoughts about heaven and hell after leaving your high demand religion. Let me know what you think. Even though I really miss feeling like I have the answers to everything, I'm really happy feeling like I get to be on this process and this journey of exploration instead of just kind of saying, this is it and this is the answer, and there's no, like, you can't question the answer, you can't, you know what I mean, think any other way. So I'm glad to be out of that framework that I just don't think is really conducive to critical thinking. But I also just miss, like, having hope that, I guess, that things are gonna be okay, and that, you know, that death doesn't have to be the end. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it didn't bum you out too much. Sorry if it did. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. You guys rock, and peace.